Hi everyone, this is Victor here. Welcome back to the Intelligent Investor channel. In this video, I'm going to analyze ASML stock. I will explain why I think ASML is one of the best dividend growth stocks that is undervalued now. Specifically, I will talk about why ASML is one of the best semiconductor stocks that is a near monopoly. At the time of making this video, the market is still down a lot. For example, the S&P 500 is down nearly 7% from the recent peak in July. The Fed is planning to hold interest rates higher for longer than what the market initially anticipated. The semiconductor index is down even more. It's down nearly 11% from the most recent peak. And ASML stock is down as much as 22% from the most recent peak in July. Of course, past performance does not guarantee future results, but I still want to show you ASML's past performance here. Here, you can see that ASML they outperformed the S&P 500 by a very large margin in the past 5 years. If you're a long-term investor, the important part you should know is this. The entire semiconductor market has been in a very large correction since 2022. Many macro headwinds are affecting almost all semiconductor companies, including ASML. Nvidia is the only exception in the semiconductor market. The best time to buy semiconductor stocks is when there's a large correction because the prices are much lower. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why I think ASML is one of the best semiconductor stocks that is undervalued now. More importantly, I will explain when I think ASML and the entire semiconductor market will start recovering. I will talk about ASML's financials, ASML's biggest risks to consider, ASML's near monopoly business and long-term growth prospects, ASML stock valuation, and will I buy ASML stock? If you like this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification button. I will continue to make many excellent stock reviews and investing videos every week that will help you become a great investor. Each video usually takes me 20 to 30 hours to make, so if you like this channel and want to support it, check out my Patreon blog in the video description. Our goal is to help all our members grow their stock portfolios to over 7 figures over time. Once you become a Patreon member, you can follow all the stocks I'm investing for the long term and download the latest intrinsic value calculators for all the stocks I'm analyzing, so you will know when a stock becomes undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued now. Also, you will have access to all my latest stock ratings for all the stocks I'm analyzing. The link is in the video description. Take a look, let's start. Before talking about ASML's biggest risk and long-term growth prospects, I want to show you ASML's financials and business model here, so you will know how ASML earns its revenues and operating income every quarter. ASML is the most important company in the semiconductor market. The company makes the most leading-edge lithography systems in the world. Chip makers use ASML's lithography systems to make the most leading-edge chips that are in our smartphones, tablets, personal computers, laptops, gaming computers, data centers, electric vehicles, autonomous driving vehicles, and any devices that need semiconductor chips. To put it simply, almost all the most powerful processors such as CPUs, GPUs, system-on-chips, AI accelerators, and data center processors are made using ASML's DUV and EUV lithography systems. Here's the important part you should know. ASML has a monopoly in extreme ultraviolet EUV lithography systems and a near monopoly in deep ultraviolet DUV lithography systems. ASML is the only company that makes EUV lithography systems in the world. Each EUV system costs well over 200 million euros. ASML also has a near monopoly in the last gen DUV lithography systems. Based on what I know, Japan's Nikon and Canon also make DUV lithography systems, but ASML's DUV lithography systems are the most advanced ones. In terms of financials, ASML earns the most revenue from selling DUV and EUV lithography systems every quarter. ASML also earns revenues from servicing and upgrading lithography systems for customers every quarter. In the past 10 years, you can see that ASML had very consistent revenue growth, operating income growth, and free cash flow growth almost every year. This is because ASML has benefited a lot from the large demand for semiconductor chips over the years, especially the most leading-edge chips. I will talk more about this later on in this video. In terms of profitability, you can see that ASML is a very profitable business. For example, its operating margin has been growing gradually for many years. Also, it has a fairly high free cash flow margin that's usually in the 20% range. Personally, I like companies that have very large economic moats, increasing earnings and increasing free cash flows over time. Also, I like companies that return excess capital to shareholders every year. For example, you can see that ASML has been paying more dividends and buying back more shares almost every year. This shows that ASML has a very strong business that will likely have higher earnings and return more capital to shareholders over time. ASML's management also expects that they will return more capital to shareholders over time. I want to share with you ASML's biggest risk here. Most of them are macro headwinds that are affecting most semiconductor companies, including ASML. ASML's first biggest risk is geopolitical risk, such as export controls from the Dutch government and the US government. Since 2019, ASML has been restricted from shipping EV systems to China because of the Dutch government and the US government's national security concerns. Specifically, the US does not want China to have access to the most advanced lithography technologies from ASML. The US is trying to prevent China from being able to make the most leading-edge chips such as 5nm and 3nm chips. Now, according to the new export regulation, ASML needs to apply for export licenses from the Dutch government before the company can ship the most advanced immersion DUV lithography system to China. ASML can still ship the most advanced DUV systems to China until the year end. This is why ASML will have much higher revenue growth this year. ASML expects that its total revenue will grow by about 30% year-over-year in 2023 compared to last year. This is because many Chinese customers are rushing ASML to ship them the most advanced DUV lithography systems before ASML can no longer ship these lithography systems starting in 2024. However, starting on January 1st, 2024, ASML expects that it can no longer ship the most advanced DUV systems to Chinese customers because of the new export control regulations. According to the most recent earnings release, ASML believes that the new export restrictions and potential additional US restrictions will not have a huge impact on the company's financials in 2023. More importantly, ASML believes that the new export regulations will not impact the company's long-term outlook. Management said this. Due to these export control regulations, ASML will need to apply for export licenses from the Dutch government for all shipments of its most advanced immersion DUV lithography systems, which means the TwinScan NXT 2000i and subsequent immersion systems. This is my opinion. I think ASML's management is mostly right. The new export restrictions only apply to the most advanced DUV lithography systems, including the TwinScan NXT 2000i and subsequent immersion systems. It does not apply to the older DUV lithography systems. ASML can still sell the much older DUV lithography systems to China. Of course, many investors speculate that the Dutch government and the US government can still impose more export restrictions on ASML if China develops more advanced process nodes, such as the 5nm process node at scale. But I'm not going to speculate on this. The important part you should know is this. Based on my understanding, ASML can still sell the much older DUV lithography system to China. This is why I think the new export regulations will not have a huge impact on ASML in the long run. If you look at this here, you can see that 16% of system sales came from China in 2021 and 14% of system sales came from China in 2022. This is my own prediction here. If the Dutch government and the US government decide to block ASML from selling any lithography systems, including the much older DUV systems to China, I believe ASML can still sell their DUV lithography systems to other countries that want to expand their chip making capabilities. For example, both Europe and the US are building more semiconductor fabs, so they will need to buy more lithography systems from ASML going forward. Here's another risk we should consider. ASML's revenue is expected to grow about 30% year-over-year in 2023, which is very high. Obviously, this growth rate is not sustainable. As of now, Chinese customers are rushing ASML to ship more of the most advanced DUV systems to them before the year end. Similar to most semiconductor companies, ASML is facing many macro headwinds that will likely affect ASML's sales growth in 2024. For example, these macro headwinds include higher inflation, higher interest rates that will likely last longer than expected, potential recession in the US and Europe, geopolitical issues between China and the US, more export controls from the Dutch government, slower economic recovery in China, excess chip inventory in the market, very soft demand for smartphones, PCs, laptops, and PC components, and slower spending on IT infrastructures. ASML's revenue is expected to slow down much more in 2024 and then recover a lot starting in 2025 when the entire semiconductor market starts recovering. ASML's management said this in the most recent earnings release. Our customers across different market segments are currently more cautious due to continuous macroeconomic uncertainties and therefore expect a later recovery of their markets. Also, the shape of the recovery slope is still unclear. However, our strong backlog of around 38 billion euros provides us with a good basis to navigate these short-term uncertainties. Due to strong DV revenue and despite the increased uncertainties, ASML expects strong growth for 2023 with a net sales increase towards 30% and a slight improvement in gross margin relative to 2022. Significant uncertainty remains in the market due to a number of global macro concerns around inflation, rising interest rates, recession, and the geopolitical environment, including export controls. Although certain end markets seem to be reaching the bottom of the cycle, the semiconductor industry is running at very high inventory levels, leading customers to moderate wafer output as the supply chain works to reduce and rebalance inventory levels. In order to limit wafer output, customers continue to run at lower lithography tool utilization levels. Customers remain cautious due to the uncertainty around the timing, the shape, and the slope of the recovery. We had an increase in bookings this quarter, resulting in a backlog of around 38 billion euros exiting the second quarter. In our EUV business, we have seen some shifts in demand timing. The majority of the shifts are due to fab readiness, with some element of uncertainty around recovery. DV demand still exceeds supply. While we have seen delays in DV demand from some customers, it has been compensated by strong demand for tools at mature and mid-critical nodes, particularly in China. Here's another short-term risk we should consider. According to Reuters, TSMC is asking suppliers, including ASML, to delay delivery of high-end chip-making equipment because of much softer demand for smartphones, laptops, PC components, and the macro headwinds I talked about earlier. Also, TSMC is delaying its upcoming semiconductor fab in Arizona to 2025. I think this will affect ASML's revenue growth in 2024 because ASML will likely delay shipping its lithography systems to TSMC. Min-Chi Kuo is a very well-known analyst. He has access to supply chains in Asia. He believes that ASML will likely cut EV system shipments by about 20% to 30% in 2024 because of the much lower demand for 3nm chips. More importantly, he believes that the current semiconductor market will not bottom in the second half of 2023. Instead, he believes that the semiconductor market will bottom in the first half of 2024 or Q2 2024. Based on what I know, the semiconductor market has not bottomed yet. I also think that the semiconductor market will bottom sometime in 2024. At the time of making this video, there are still too many macro uncertainties that are affecting the end market demand for smartphones, laptops, PCs, PC components, electric vehicles, data center processors, and other devices that need a lot more chips. If the end market demand is too soft, or if there's still too much chip inventory in the market, the largest chip manufacturers such as TSMC, Samsung, Intel, and Micron will order fewer lithography systems from ASML. The largest chip manufacturers will also ask the ASML to delay shipping lithography systems until the entire semiconductor market starts recovering. I think this is why ASML's revenue growth is expected to slow down a lot in 2024. I want to share with you ASML's biggest competitive advantage and long-term growth prospects here, so you'll know when ASML will start recovering. This from Morningstar. Morningstar gave ASML a wide academic moat because of ASML's technological expertise and its large amount of resources in making the most advanced lithography systems. ASML has economies of scale and a very large cost advantage in making the most advanced lithography systems at scale. ASML has very well-established relationships with its biggest customers, such as TSMC, Samsung, and Intel. ASML works with them to design lithography systems. It's also extremely hard and capital-intensive to design semiconductor lithography systems. For example, it took ASML over 17 years and more than 6 billion of investments to develop the EUV lithography system. All these things combined create huge barriers to entry for new competitors to make their lithography systems. This is why there are only 3 major players that make lithography systems: ASML, Canon, and Nikon. I said this earlier, ASML is the only company in the world that makes EUV lithography systems and the next gen high-NA EUV lithography systems. ASML also makes the most advanced DUV lithography systems. Based on what I know, ASML's DUV lithography systems are more advanced than the DUV lithography systems from Canon and Nikon. ASML's current gen EUV system costs over 200 million euros each. ASML's next gen high-NA EUV system will be even more expensive. The next gen high-NA EUV system will cost over 300 million euros each. Very few companies in the world can afford to buy EUV lithography systems from ASML. Only the largest chip makers in the world such as TSMC, Intel, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron can afford to buy EUV lithography systems from ASML. This is a product roadmap from ASML. ASML is planning to release these new EUV lithography machines for customers that will support their future process nodes, such as the 2nm node and beyond. All these new systems are expected to be even more expensive. All these things show that ASML has a very large economic moat and a near monopoly business. This is why I believe it's nearly impossible for new competitors to compete with ASML in making the most advanced lithography systems. Over the long run, I believe there are several growth drivers that will drive ASML's long-term revenue growth going forward. I believe the first growth driver is this. All the major chip manufacturers such as TSMC, Samsung, and Intel are already planning to make chips based on the next gen N2 process node and future nodes over the next 4 to 5 years. For example, TSMC expects that they will have the N2 node in volume production in 2025. Intel is still aiming to achieve 5 process nodes in 4 years. Samsung is expected to have the 2nm node ready for production in 2025 and the 1.4nm node in 2027. So all these leading-edge process nodes will require much more advanced EUV systems such as the upcoming high-NA EUV system from ASML. Here is another growth driver. Both TSMC and Samsung are building new fabs in the US. At the same time, they will continue to expand their fabs in Asia. Intel is expanding more fabs in the US as well as in Europe. All these new fabs around the world will need ASML's DUV and EUV lithography systems. Many of these new fabs will start to go online starting in 2025. TSMC, Samsung, and Intel will need to buy DUV and EUV lithography systems from ASML at least 1 year in advance before their new fabs go online. Here's another growth driver over the long term. In my opinion, I believe there are several mega trends that will drive ASML system sales over the long run. These mega trends include 5G smartphones, high-performance computing HPC, data center processors that need to be much more powerful and more power efficient, AI GPUs that are needed for generative AI and other AI workloads, Internet of Things, electric vehicles, autonomous driving vehicles that need a lot more leading-edge chips, and the next-gen computing platforms such as the upcoming Apple mixed reality headsets. All the major tech companies' most leading-edge chips are made using ASML's lithography systems. For example, Apple's A17 chip in the iPhone 15 Pro, Amazon's custom data center chips, and Nvidia's H100 and A100 AI GPUs are all made using ASML's lithography systems. I showed you this earlier. In the short term, I think ASML's revenue growth will likely slow down a lot in 2024 because of all the macro headwinds I talked about earlier. But once inflation starts coming down significantly around the world, and once the major central banks start lowering interest rates again, I believe the demand for semiconductor chips will also recover. For example, once the US inflation comes down significantly to the 2% target, and once the Fed starts cutting rates starting in 2024, consumers will likely start buying more iPhones, more electric vehicles, more laptops, and more high-performance PC components such as CPUs and GPUs. Also, once the entire semiconductor market starts recovering, which it did recover many times in the past, the demand for ASML's lithography systems will also recover. Here, you can see that ASML's revenue growth is expected to accelerate again in 2025 because of the semiconductor market is expected to recover by then. Also, many new fabs are coming online starting in 2025. This is why ASML's revenue growth is expected to accelerate again starting in 2025. At the time of making this video, ASML has an order backlog of 38 billion euros. This is almost 2 years of order backlog if we compare it with ASML's total revenue in 2022, which was 21 billion euros. I think this is a very healthy order backlog. It shows that there's still a large demand for ASML's lithography systems even during this semiconductor correction. According to this market research, the global semiconductor market is expected to reach around 1.88 trillion by 2032. The semiconductor market is expected to grow at a compound annual growth rate CAGR of 12.28% from 2023 to 2032. ASML gave this outlook in the most recent Investors Day event. ASML expects that its total revenue to increase from 21 billion in 2022 to between 30 billion and 40 billion in 2025. Over the long term, ASML expects that its total sales to reach between 44 billion and 60 billion in 2030. Here's a comparison. ASML's consensus revenue is expected to reach approximately 54 billion in 2030. In my opinion, I believe these expected growth rates are reasonable, considering the long-term growth prospects and ASML's outlook I talked about earlier. I want to show you how to calculate ASML stock's intrinsic value here, so you will know when ASML stock becomes undervalued, fairly valued, or overvalued. If you want this calculator, you can download it from my Patreon blog. The link is in the video description. These are the key assumptions in this calculator. First, I define ASML's intrinsic value as its future free cash flows discounted to the present day. I use a discount rate of 10.5% here. You can use a higher discount rate here if you want to be more conservative. Based on the long-term prospects I talked about earlier, I believe ASML's total revenue will grow between 27.5% and 32.5% year-over-year in 2023. After that, I believe ASML's total value will grow at a compound annual growth rate CAGR between 10% and 15% over the next several years. I'm predicting that the semiconductor market will bottom sometime in 2024 and start recovering afterward. Let's go over these three case scenarios here: worst case, normal case, and best case scenarios. Under the worst case scenario, we're forecasting that ASML's revenue will grow by around 27.5% year-over-year in 2023. Then we're forecasting that ASML's total revenue will grow at a CAGR of 10% over the next several years. If we forecast ASML's free cash flow over the next 5 years and discount the free cash flow to the present day, ASML's intrinsic value should be around 228 billion for the entire company, or $579 per share. I'm giving this scenario a 25% probability here. Under the base case scenario, we're forecasting that ASML's revenue will grow by around 30% year-over-year in 2023. Then we're forecasting that ASML's total revenue will grow at a CAGR of 12.5% over the next several years. Then ASML's intrinsic value should be around 253 billion for the entire company, or $640 per share. I'm giving this scenario a 50% probability here. Under the best case scenario, we're forecasting that ASML's revenue will grow by around 32.5% year-over-year in 2023. Then we're forecasting that ASML's total revenue will grow at a CAGR of 15% over the next several years. Then ASML's intrinsic value should be around 280 billion for the entire company, or $710 per share. I'm giving this scenario a 25% probability here. If we add all these numbers here, ASML's intrinsic value should be around $642 per share. I also used the forward price to sales valuation model here to estimate ASML's intrinsic value, which should be around 275 billion for the entire company, or around $698 per share. If we take the average of both valuation models here, I believe ASML's intrinsic value should be around $670 per share. Just to compare, Morningstar gave ASML a much fair value of $750 per share. This means I believe ASML is greatly undervalued at the time making this video. So will I buy ASML stock? Yes, I'm planning to buy more ASML shares going forward whenever it's undervalued. I like ASML's near monopoly business and its long-term growth prospects. I believe there are many mega trends that will drive ASML's long-term growth over the next 10 years. For example, these mega trends include generative AI accelerators that are needed for AI training and AI inference, high-performance computing HPC, new process nodes from TSMC, Samsung, and Intel, and the next computing platforms such as the Apple mixed reality headsets. All these megatrends will require the most leading-edge chips that are much more powerful, more power efficient, and smaller in size. ASML's DUV and EUV lithography systems are essential to making the most leading-edge chips. There is no other company in the world that can replace ASML in the semiconductor sector. At the time of making this video, the market is still in a large correction because of many macro headwinds, especially high inflation, high interest rates, and high US Treasury yields. Many tech stocks, including ASML, are down a lot from their most recent peaks. The Fed is planning to hold higher rates longer in order to bring inflation down to the 2% target. Higher rates always affect tech stocks the most. The Fed is planning to cut rates starting in 2024, but it will be at a much slower pace than the market initially forecasted. Once the Fed starts cutting rates, I believe many tech stocks will recover lots. To take advantage of this market, I'm going to continue buying the dip. I like to be very greedy when others are fearful. For example, I already have ASML in this portfolio here. I also have other semiconductor stocks such as TSMC, Nvidia, and AMD. I'm not too worried about them because I know that the entire semiconductor market will eventually recover as it did many times in the past. So once the entire semiconductor market recovers, I believe the best semiconductor companies such as ASML, TSMC, and AMD will also recover lots. Now, all these are only my opinions and my analysis based on my research. They are not financial advice. There are always risks associated with investing. You will need to do your own research and do your extra due diligence first before investing in anything. Thank you for watching this video and supporting our channel. This is Victor from the Intelligent Investor channel, and I will see you in the next video.